I think I make a mean pierogi. I do. I really do. Okay.
Nuts.
You boil it first, you let it float to the top, right? And then while it's doing all that, you take some butter, right? You melt the butter down a little bit, get it all nice and liquidy. You throw a little bit of salt in there, but then you put some garlic powder in there. You mix it all together, and then you lather it all over the pierogies, and then you fry them up.
I
He gets
hope
one
this.
high in the air. Left field. This one's got a chance. And let's go on a cowhide. Joyride. Sound the horn. The RailCats clear the yard.
Hello, RailCats fans, and welcome back to the RailCats Talk podcast. He's Chuck Polarek. I'm Kyle Svetich, and spring training for MLB has started, and hopefully we don't see any more pitchers getting nailed with 106-mile-an-hour fastballs like we did on the first day of spring training, as the Cubs batter, I think it was Michael Bush, hit one back. I can't think of the pitcher's name. He was like two pitches in, right off the side of his head. Luckily, he walked away okay, but don't worry, no baseball players are going to be harmed during this podcast. But we might have had a bowler hurt during the week. Chuck, did I know you're not doing so well? How was your
Oh,
week of bowling?
oh, well, first of all, I want to say this that uh, rumor has it. The reason why that batter is okay is because they did not have a helmet sponsorship. See, so they didn't go with the sponsorship for their helmets. They actually
That's
did.
that's false.
Damn it.
They do have the sponsors on the side of the MLB
Oh,
helmets, and it was
oh,
the pitcher that got hit, not the batter.
whatever. It doesn't
Same difference, right?
obviously
Yeah.
what it is. I didn't pay any attention. We can cut this out too. Uh, bowling was okay. I bowled three awful games. Well, not awful, awful, but I'm back to normal. Um, and what have you. I did get to bowl with my new baseball uh, bowling ball, which was cool.
Yeah, I did see that. That's a nice bowling ball. That's
It was the talk of the town. I told Natasha as I was up there and I overheard people next to us saying, "Wow, I really like that bowling ball." I said, "Listen, they're talking about my ball." And it's the talk of the town. So uh, yeah, it was pretty good. So that was fun. It was also I'm sure that when we get this out, the deal will be over with. But it was the Deuces Wild for
Yep.
ticket prices, and I ended up snagging up my family pass. My dad
Ditto.
snagged up his family pass, so 222, hard to pass that up. All you got to do is give Alex a call, and he will set you up with that. 5 tickets per game for every home game. General admission is fantastic deal for
Hmm.
222 bucks. So we did that. That was a good thing to get over and done with. Always try to hold out till the best deal or till I feel like now's the time. And as soon as Alex sent out that email to me, I was like, all right, snagging it up now.
Yep. I felt the
So that
same.
was good. I did hear that one of the guys that I really liked, that I thought it did a great job with concessions last year, Jeff. I
Hmm.
heard he is no longer with the RailCats and he has moved on to the Milkmen,
Oh,
uh,
okay.
is what I have heard. So I hope he does fantastic things for them like he did for us. I also hope that when I go to Milwaukee, I run into him and tell him that I enjoyed having him and I hope he's got good luck moving forward.
Yep.
Um, so there was that news that I picked up on yesterday. Um, Not from RailCats people, but from other people outside of that. And so yeah, that was the big couple of things that I've dealt with or heard. And then I've been feeling sick for the past couple of days, so that's been kind of rough. But ready to talk some baseball.
Well, we could try, this was probably a bad podcast for you to be maybe sick on because, um, like I said last week, I said, oh, we can play around the lines a little bit and see what we can come together. And you're like, yeah, we're not probably gonna do that. Well, guess what I did this week? I brought out the nerd glasses. I have a notebook full of things. I have posty sticky notes everywhere.
I,
Because
I
I
did
was
I did have some other interesting news as I was thinking about uh, baseball this week. Throw it out there. So one of the first players that AJ met and actually kind of got talking to and followed on Instagram and everything is JC Escara. He played for the Monarchs 3 years ago. Great guy. Ended up going to the Atlantic League. He is on the official Yankees roster.
Yeah.
And so that's really cool when you meet a player and you get to know a player a little bit and one of the kids develops a pretty cool relationship with that player and then the player becomes a pro uh, at the show is crazy. It's a crazy thought. Um, and then I started thinking about some of these players that are on the RailCats that hey, that could happen with any of these guys.
Well,
Sorry.
before you cut me off, I came up with our lineup with the players that we have. But you do bring up a good point about players being picked up by affiliate baseball. They finally announced all the players that have signed so far in the offseason. They finally put out Grant Umberger signing with the White Sox. We also have Michael Holquist, who played for Fargo, signed with the Cleveland Guardians, and then Cleburne Jax Groshans is
Yep.
now with the Los Angeles Angels. So that's interesting. That's kind of the news I like to hear, coming from I like to look at the other transactions, but like the people that are getting signed are my kind of.
So when Jax got signed, I sent him a message said, "Hey, congrats." Um, so Jax was playing with Lake Country, and I think he told me to shut the f up or something. I can't quite remember what it was, but he said something really mean to me. And when he was with Cleburne and he was talking to us and stuff, and I said he was signing my baseball. I had a team baseball that I had everybody sign, and he was looking down, and I said, "Hey, didn't you tell me to like shut the f up or something?" And he starts smiling while he had his head down, and he goes, "I was hoping you wouldn't remember that." And he apologized. I said, "Oh, it's no big deal. I get it. I get it." But he's like, "Yeah, uh, he was in a better place in Cleburne." So, and I think that that to me kind of shows something, to be honest with you, because I don't think that Jack's playing in Lake Country uh, gets him to affiliate ball.
Yeah.
I think that whether it's just the team landscape or it's just the workings of Lake Country or what have you. But him being on Cleburne, where the team was uh, definitely gelling and
Hmm.
definitely working like crazy together, uh, really brings out the best in each other.
Yeah.
And that's what gets into affiliate ball. So, you know, look at that and kind of spin that on what we have with the RailCats last year. RailCats last year, everybody was doing bad. And I think it's because everybody was doing bad. Instead of everybody lifting each other up, everybody was dragging each other down. And I don't know what the recipe is to change that, you know?
No, I mean, that's the big thing. A lot of things that players that Lamar has been bringing back, a lot of there's somewhere in there, if it's the actual word or a synonym for it, is inconsistency.
Right.
And that's those players that are bringing back are went through those peaks and valleys, and hopefully something with this roster that we can kind of fix. But before I get to the roster real quick, new hats this year for the American Association. CapX has signed a multi-year contract with the American Association. We will start to see the CapX as the official provider for the AAPB championships teams competing in the WBC Baseball Champions League. Down there in Mexico that's starting up here shortly. So we'll see those come out prior. And then obviously that will be on field. So the interesting thing is it going to be is there still going to be new era hats in the team store? Because that was what the Rail Cats were necessarily wearing. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. But the founder of Cap X was a he was an original founder and lead designer for Zephyr hats. So this brand here, that the one I'm wearing. So he was a designer. So like I like the products that they've put out. So I have high hopes for CapX. The only thing I'm not sure about is I've looked on their website. They don't have a lot of hats. They've only been in business for about a year. They've sold a lot of hats, but um like the minimum is like $40 for some of these hats. So it's like how much, I mean, obviously hats are going to be expensive, but like just wearing a normal hat of theirs is still a premium spot that you're going to buy it versus what Zephyr was.
You know how many times I had people coming to games last year where they went into the souvenir shop thinking that they were going to be buying hats or jerseys, and they came out with a cup or a rusty doll because we had no hats and we had no jerseys, um, probably 10 times. And so hopefully that changes this year,
Yeah.
because it sucks when people are excited about going and getting product, and then when they get there, there's no product. And it sucks for me too, being that I know that these guys are, hey, I'd like to have something to remember this game, and what have you, and then they've got, nothing. So hopefully we get to see that. I
Yeah.
don't care if it costs $40 or it costs, $25 or whatever. If it's quality hat, it's quality hat. But if you ain't got none in the store, it really doesn't matter.
Well, no, I'm not. I guess I'm not. I'm just saying that we should be getting a premium brand because like the Zephyr brand was like the kind of the off brand of like the new era to a certain
Right.
extent. Even though I really like I mean, I love this hat and I wear this hat all the time. It's not that I don't like the brand. It's just it was the least expensive option versus the new era. So like the Cap X is it's more going to be a premium hat. So I would expect the quality to be close to a new era hat. They have sponsored with I can't think of the player's name, but he plays in the NHL. He has a hat with them. Like they have some athletes that are kind of doing something with them in that extent. But like I said, they've been a company for about a full year now. They started in January 2024. So I have high hopes for it. I think it's good for the league to have everything being uniformed. That's the being part of a league, being uniformed. The hats is a first start. Hopefully, we can see something with the uniforms themselves and kind of move on through the rest of the league as far as that. Um, but I know why we're all here. We're all here to hear my lineup, right?
We,
And
we
let's
are. We are here to hear your lineup. I am really interested in hearing your lineup because I too have somewhat of a lineup. And so you
it,
did
it
bring this upon me all of about 20 minutes ago. And I have spent all of 6 of those minutes thinking about it. And so I too am ready for a solid lineup.
Okay, so let me go with my first nerdy thing that I did. I know I'm gonna throw numbers out here, but it's not really bad.
Uh,
No, well,
let's not ruin it. Let's
you
not
know,
scare everybody off.
well. So we're talking with Nick and Ryan. They were talking about the average of the pitchers and stuff like that. So right now, the ERA for the starters that I picked is a 5.41. It's not very good. But it could change. But for all pitchers, it's a 5.29. So that's including the starting and the relief. How I broke it up, what I did was if they had any kind of independent baseball experience, that's the only thing, that's the only numbers that I took. If they had no MO or independent baseball experience, I took their overall career. So some people's in numbers might be inflated one way or the other, but I wanted to have a more realistic number of the people that played somewhat in affiliate baseball. So if they only played 1 year or independent baseball or MLB partner league, if they only played 1 year, that's the year that I put on there. So right now, this is no like specific order of my like opening day person. This is just how I have it. I have Anders Diaz, who was a 640 last year. I have him being a starter to a potential relief pitcher, depending if a couple pieces are able to move around or depending on his consistency. I have Chris Irwin as a starter, Ethan Hankins as a starter to a relief pitcher as well, Peyton Long as a starter. and then Ty Tiedemann and Brian Viller are the five that I have at the starting rotation portion of it. You can throw them around however you want. It's just kind of hard to pick an opening day starter, just based on like injuries and priorness to that. Um, and I was thinking about I have Julio Pinto as the closer because he's the only one that has any kind of closing experience that I was aware of when looking through all this. The one that I would be surprised to see, not surprised to see in the starting rotation, but I see it maybe taking a minute or two to get him in there, is Spencer Adams, who was in the White Sox organization in his career with the Whites, or in his career, he had a 3.93 um, ERA as a starting pitcher. He doesn't really have a lot of relief pitching, but I don't know when the last time he's actually played baseball. So I don't want to say, yes, throw him out there as a starter and him be perfectly fine. I think you're just going to burn through his arm. Um, and then I also had the reason I had Ethan Hankins as a starter to a relief is because he's also coming back from injury, and we don't have a lot of starters on the team. So like I just slotted him in there. So I wouldn't be surprised if we got another, another starter in there or two if he got moved into the bullpen. Um, that's basically, and the relief pitching would be Jacob Acosta, Spencer Adams, Dawson Lane, Martinez, Julio Pinto, and that those were the pitchers that I had. Um, do you have any different ideas?
I pitching when it comes to pitching, I've really got to. It's not a 6 minute thing,
Yeah.
right? I mean, when it comes to that, a lineup as far as who's playing the field or who's batting order stuff like that, I think you can throw together pretty quickly. But pitching is kind of going to be a tough one. One thing I'd throw out is I mean, I was just as you were saying that I was looking. Uh, there's a lot of solid pitchers out there right now that haven't signed with anybody yet.
Hmm.
And one of the ones I throw out there, again, I've said it before, is Greg Manier. He pitched with Lincoln, had a 2 something ERA. And then last year he was with Milwaukee and he had a 6 something ERA. But I don't think that was, I think that the 2 something ERA is closer to who he is. And so a guy like that, if we could pick up something like that, somebody like that, I think that helps out the pitching rotation quite a bit. Um, but ERA, I'm are insanely high, and I don't know that you could have high ERAs, but you have to have the bats to back it up to be a winning team, and we don't have that. So we're kind of at this really hopeful, not like wow, really hopeful, but like, oh, I hope somebody I hope somebody comes in before I die of suffocation in this coffin type of hopeful. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get that. It is one of those. Pitching is so hard, I would say, to judge. In this type of environment because you don't know where the pitchers have gone through. You don't know what they've gone through, and you're not sure what kind of changes that, if they went from affiliate ball, why they got knocked out. Was it due to them not being able to change pitches or weren't able to get what the organization wanted? A lot of it you can look at the numbers and say, okay, well, he has a lot of walks or he has a really good strikeout ratio. Um, but he gives up a lot of hits. Like it's kind of you can kind of tell, but you don't. There's no other than Chris Irwin. There isn't a lot of people on this staff that have consistent MLB partner league experience.
Right.
So it's kind of hard to put together. Or like this is a definite yes. This is where this is going. Um,
Oh, and
eh,
I think last year, if your your picks, your luck, your chances
mhm.
worked out, I think that you go from 30 games to 50 games, right? Because a lot of, I'd say 20 games were lost because we gave up 5 runs or six
Yeah.
runs, 7 runs, and we only scored 3 or 4, right? So I think that's a big difference. But other teams have a formula that works, and we haven't figured out a formula that works yet. And I think that's kind of the the struggle.
Yeah.
And so are we going to go with the same formula again and hope that this time it works? I don't know. But I mean, what was it? The Canaries just re-signed Ryan Zimmerman.
Yeah.
He's a great, powerful little pitcher, and he's always consistent. There's pitchers out there that are just waiting
Hmm.
that are consistent, and it would be nice to pick up a name like that has been in the league, that has given consistent numbers, so that you can not have that risk that you're using be the one that's like, uh, I picture it as the way that we are is we're in a boat and we've got a giant bowling ball that looks like a baseball, and we're trying to figure out how hard we can throw it through the bottom of the boat and think that it doesn't sink, right? That's kind of the way that I look at what our plan is. And instead of saying, "Hey, I've got a little rock that at least if the rock goes through the boat, you're not all dying." And
Yeah.
that's the way that it is right now. Is it's like, okay, we're taking a chance on a lot of guys. Hopefully, one comes through. No, you're taking a chance on a lot of guys, and you're hoping that like four of them come through.
Yeah. I mean,
If I'm wrong, I mean,
no,
tell me.
no, I don't think you're necessarily wrong because like the numbers necessarily don't lie in the aspect of like the ERAs and the walk to strike, the whips and all that other stuff, which I always find it funny because last year in like the conversation with Lamar was, you know, what's the big thing when he looks at pitching is he says whip, and every guy that I see he has that he signs is 1.5 or above. Like that's not that good. Like you look at other pitchers and they're in the 1.2s or the 1.1s, and it's just like what numbers are we looking at to judge these kind of these players? Are we just basing it off of, oh, he had high expectations in affiliate ranks and he just got injured, so hopefully he can come back to that. Like I said, I'm not sure what, the one that has been consistent, is Chris Irwin. He's been in the league for how many odd years, and that's for a good reason. He's just been plagued with injuries the past couple years,
maybe
which,
maybe Lamar is thinking that these pitchers that he gets are getting a surgery done, and this is a Disney movie, and that they're going to come back with super strong arms,
are, yeah,
and they're going to win it all. Maybe that's what he thinks is going to happen here.
it could be a good possibility. I mean, uh, realistically, the only, not saying that. I think Anders Diaz is a promising pitcher. I think Ethan Hankins is a promising pitcher, but the one that really sticks out to me is the Spencer Adams guy.
Yes, I agree with you.
He's the one. Yeah, I don't know what happened, why he hasn't been playing baseball, but like you're not that successful and just all of a sudden stop playing baseball.
Right, right.
So
There's possibilities out there.
and
I agree. I agree.
but the thing is pitching is so hit or miss.
Right.
You could pitch five great innings and you could have one terrible inning and your ERA could still be above five.
Absolutely.
It's
If you don't get yanked, if you're not in sync with your coaches, and you start to blow up the game, and they haven't got somebody ready to go and got you out of there, and bring in a fresh arm or whatever it is, then yeah, you could totally lose the game because of that, and it could sink your stats like crazy, right?
Mhm.
Absolutely. But the other thing is that this is like, we could look at, baseball when you're hitting. If you don't fail two out of three or one out of three times, you're a superstar, right?
Mhm.
And I would say that, hey, if you've got six pitchers that you really haven't seen, that you're hoping are good, and you find one or you find two, that's fantastic. But with what we have, we're hoping to find four out of six.
I agree.
And I don't think that's realistic. And so now it's like, okay, you really can't make mistakes like that and still be competitive, at least not from what these other teams have been doing.
No, I think I know it's been a shift in MLB is how many innings a starting pitcher will go because it used to be starting pitchers you would expect to go at least 6 innings. Now it's been they may hit five, but more likely they're going to hit four. And I know Lamar has kind of fallen himself into that kind of mentality where he tries to replicate what they do in the MLB because he wants it to be the next step. If you make an affiliate ball, he wants it to be almost a seamless transaction. But we're in the business of second chances, but we're not in the business of training and developing people.
Right.
So if it's a big shell shock from you going from pitching 6 innings to pitching 4 innings, if you make it to the affiliate ranks, I don't. I guess my thing is to not tax the bullpen as they did so much last year. If the starting pitcher gives up 3 or 4 runs in 4 innings and he still has plenty of space to go, let him ride it. Because I think that's was a big issue is you keep rotating these arms in and out and you
Yeah.
just burn your bullpen.
Oh, I've said that before, but here's the other, you can give up 3, 4 runs, but if you're going, you're 4 innings in, 5 innings in, and in that fifth inning you give up 3 runs and you haven't given up any yet, that's kind of a different story. So you really it comes down to your pitching coach, your manager, and as a pitcher, you all have to be in sync. And you have to know when to give some leeway and you have to know when it's enough.
Yeah.
And it's like as a team, they have to get through that stuff. But it doesn't, to me, as a fan, doesn't make any sense that when you have a pitcher that goes out there and it's a close game, right? And you have a pitcher that goes out there and shuts down an inning 1, 2, 3, that you yank that pitcher out and take a chance with another guy
Yeah.
to go 1, 2, 3, and that's not something that your pitcher goes out there and gives you what you need.
Hmm.
You should be able to say, you know what, let's go another inning with that because you're hot right now. You've got it right now. Let's stretch it a little bit. And I feel like that, you know, one inning can lose you the game.
Hmm.
And a lot of times it was, hey, the pitcher goes out there and gives me 4, 5, 6 solid innings. Seventh inning, a pitcher comes out there and gives it to me. In 1, 2, 3 inning. Eighth inning, pitcher comes out there, doesn't have his stuff, gives up 6 runs. And it's like, okay, why did we just play the previous 6 innings when this guy just blew it up?
No, I agree. I felt like last year the pitching staff lost a little bit of confidence in themselves. Um, because when you do have a pitcher, that obviously if starters struggle at the beginning of the game, they normally work themselves through it.
Right,
And you get that leeway versus, you go in the fifth, sixth inning and your offense really isn't doing anything and your starting pitcher gives up 2 to 3 runs, but there's still 2 outs. Like you don't see them try to work through that. So it's like as soon as I start giving up those runs, it's like, all right, get him out of here. And then it
right,
turns into, all right, you get the bullpen guy out there, he shuts the door, and it's all right, cool, you gave us 1 inning, nice, pull you out, bring another guy in, the guy gives up 6 or 7 runs in that inning. It just like it deflates everything.
right,
So I think this year I would like to see if you're going to designate a setup and a closer, if you're going to give an eighth inning guy and a ninth inning guy, I understand that. They're both going to pitch 1 inning. That's your guys. But I would like to see a little bit more bulk in between starting pitching and relief pitching. A little, if a starting pitcher's struggling, to have a reliever that's able to go 3 or 4 innings,
right.
or at least three, not just a bunch of one people, and then you're rotating in and out of what's
Yeah,
ebbs and flows of the game. Like if it's a close game, obviously you're going to have your guys that you want. Hence last year, Julio Pinto, Josh Smith, Nate Alexander, uh, those kinds of people that you're going to want in those close games. As much as you didn't necessarily like him, I like him as far as he ate innings. That was Casey Grimm. He ate innings for us last year. He may not have been, he may not thrown the fastest ball in the world. He wasn't the submarine pitcher that I know you're thinking of as well, but he gave us innings, and sometimes you just need a guy to give you innings. So if he was a guy that was returned, I wouldn't see a big issue with him because he was able to give you consistent innings and when you needed a stopgap between your starting and your closing pitcher, he was able to give that to you.
Wow. I don't think there's ever been a time where we've disagreed this much before. I first of all, I got nothing against Casey Grimm, uh, and what have you, but I I believe that there's a time where you need to have a pitcher to eat innings, and that time when you need that pitcher is when you're down 7, 8 runs, 6 runs, 5 runs, and there's no real chance of you coming back, and it's after the first half of the game. He would be a guy, not him, but a guy that you would bring in. Your pitcher goes 3 innings, gets killed. You bring in another guy, and now the game is pretty much out of hand in the fifth inning. Okay, you bring this guy in for him to pitch the last 4 innings. You don't waste your closer. You don't waste your setup guy. Maybe you bring in a new pitcher that's just been added to the roster, so you can see how he throws, and that kind of thing. Put him in some real life experience, but I, yeah, you need a pitcher that's just going to go out there and maybe give up 4 or 5 runs a game, but gets you through the innings. Absolutely. Um, but I don't know that that's necessarily what you want to tie up your roster with.
Well, no, I'm not saying that you need to tie your roster up with a pitcher like that to a certain. I guess he did eat innings, but he didn't eat like a lot of innings necessarily. I mean, he there was a couple times where he had 5 innings that he pitched a handful of times, but mostly it was like 1 to 2 innings that he would pitch. Um, but he was just a guy that he was consistent in what he was giving you.
Yeah,
A-
absolutely.
And I'm not saying that you have to necessarily to have another guy like that is I guess what I'm getting at is I just don't know with this roster who would be that Band-Aid guy almost.
Yeah. I mean, if Lamar is looking for a guy that can throw 70 consistently, my shoulder's almost fixed. I can go out there and give a good 2 solid innings.
I I know me and you don't disagree with that one, but I never saw a big. I mean, he pitched a 5.12 ERA, which if you're looking at relief
Puts him in line
pitching,
with the rest of the team.
well, I mean, it's in line with the rest of the team, but that's the top portion, other than Yohan Valdez, Jacob Acosta, who only played in 7 games, but Nate Alexander and Josh Smith, you know, out of the relievers, he's the one that's the lowest, out of the main course ones.
Last year was a crap show. Okay. We're looking for something to be different this year. And I hope that that happens. If you're talking bringing in guys that are 5 point whatevers and hoping for a different outcome, it's not going to happen. They might get a little better, but your hitting hasn't changed at all. So really, you're just talking about winning 2, 3 extra games, and that's not going to make a difference. Here's where you save the day. Here's where you have an outrageously huge change where I would say, yes, there's something different. Yes, we can win. Okay. One change or one addition makes that difference. That's a catcher.
Yeah, and
You bring me in a Hector Sanchez. You bring me in a very experienced older catcher that knows the game, that knows talent, and knows how to call a game. You bring me in a guy like that, and these pitchers get better, and the fielding gets better. That's what we're missing
Yeah, I would agree. Right now we only have one catcher on staff
Right.
at the moment. And I really think after, because it's official that they made some changes on the Columbia roster, and Guillermo Quintana is playing in the um, the qualifying rounds for Columbia, so he's on the roster for it.
Yep.
Is he going to play? Maybe not. They have like three catchers on the roster, but he's been having an outstanding time with the Winter League, so I would imagine that he would probably get some playing time. Again, he's 23, 24 years old, still young. And he had his flaws last year, which he seemed to correct at the end of the year somehow. Um, with being more of a defensive catcher and being able to hit the ball more, which is something that we lacked in. But again, we're missing that veteran presence of an older catcher who knows how to call a game necessarily.
Right.
Um, so with that, we'll segue into the
Lineups.
lineups. So just right now, for everyone that's on staff, again, I did the same thing. If they played MLB Partner League experience, that's the only stats I put in there. If they played none of that, and it's just their overall ratings or their stats. The entire team, the batting average is a 241. The on base percentage is a 356. Slugging is 378, and OPS is 698. So what this tells me is that they're every fourth, every fifth at bat, you're gonna get a hit. Every third at bat and a half, you're gonna get on base somehow, some way. And it tells me that when you do hit the ball, it's more than likely going to be a single or a double is what you're going to get out of this. And when you combine all that together, you have the OPS of 698, which is well below the average of what a normal MLB standard would be. And I understand this is not MLB, but that's how you kind of judge where the rating is on that one. So when I looked at the roster itself, I took in consideration where they have played when I could find it, and the roster is filled with a lot of second basemen and people that can play left and right field. So it was very interesting trying to slot all these players into a position on the field. So we will go from uh, third base. I have Olivier Basabe, which I think was a lock and key for most of us. Um, at
I
short,
I don't have him at third base.
okay.
I have him at second base.
So this is where I had my disagreement with me and my myself. So at first I had Marcos Gonzalez at short,
Right.
and then I had Ethan Lopez at second base.
Okay.
But I knew that Marcos was more comfortable playing at second and had better numbers at second, and Ethan seemed like the type of player that you could move to short. So with Ethan, um, he was batting a 326 with an on base percentage of a 396 or 396. So this tells me that he hits the ball for average. He gets on base, and when he can hit the ball, he's going to put a little pop to it. Um, Let me see here. I had him all. Yeah. The thing is so like he could play third base, he can play center field, he could play shortstop. I put him at shortstop just because when I looked at the entire team itself, that was the one spot where I'm like he could probably play there, and you're gonna more than likely want your best player. Eh, I'm not saying that he is the best player, but he the numbers are kind of showing that way for him to be that shortstop. So then I had Marcos Gonzalez at second. So I flip-flopped that one late. There's only really one first baseman in this one, and that's Jose Contreras. I know me and you both have our reservations about him playing first base.
I put Romer at first base.
I didn't put Romer there because of the outfield situation. Um, I have LG Castillo in left field. I have Carlos Machado in center field, and I have Romer in right field. LG was a lock-in left. I I think I would rather him play in right field, but I know he spent a lot of times in left field last year, so just keep him there. Carlos, the issue with Carlos was he's been injured, so he hasn't played baseball in a couple years. So again, it's one of those I'm like, where do I put him? But we also need a center fielder because when looking through everyone's recent playing years or their defensive side, there's no one else that has played center in the past couple years. So it was one of those like, where have players been playing? Not saying that Lamar won't move a bunch of people around, you could have moved Carlos Machado to a DH, but I have Nick Olsh at a DH because that's what he did last year in the Pioneer League. And last year in the Pioneer League, he batted at 343 as a DH. I think that's something that we're lacking. So why worry about moving him out of that spot if he's able to do that? And I believe Nick is also left-handed. You need someone like that in the lineup that can hit for power. Last year he played in 90 games. He only had 7 home runs, but when I say hit for power, I mean you have 21 doubles, 3 or 7 triples. I mean he's consistently be able to hit the ball, and having a higher kind of OPS and slugging and all that other fun jazz, which I think is something that's beneficial in this spot because we have such a wide open field for hitters in themselves to hit in the gaps.
So I agree with a bunch of your assessment. First of all, I think Carlos is probably the way I'm picturing him at 6'2", 170. He's probably a very fast guy.
Mhm.
So therefore, having him in center field probably makes a lot more sense. It's a lot more territory to cover. Um, so I agree with you there. Having Nick as your DH, I I agree with you there. Especially with his history of DHing, and the fact that he's a left-hander. I don't know that I necessarily want to um, put a guy like that out in the outfield if I don't have to, and I'm still going to see that production from him.
Mhm.
So I agree with you there on having him be the DH. Um, I put Contreras as my third baseman.
Okay.
And the reason why I did that is because um, I I hesitate on putting I don't want to put Contreras at first base because I see him getting hurt or I see him hurting somebody else. I think that him being at third base, which he's done a pretty good job at, it limits him making mistakes, just like it limits him making mistakes at first base. But anytime there's a play in the outfield or in the infield, the first baseman is there to be part of that play. And I think if we take Jose out of some of that, um, we reduce some errors. Okay.
I,
Uh,
I,
Go ahead.
yeah, but the issue is the amount of plays that Asabi made at third, and that's what he played last year was third. That's
Right.
all he played. I would rather have outside of my shortstop, my second best fielder there at that hot corner because he made some plays last year that would have not been made in years past, especially at the hot
Absolutely.
corner. And I right now, like I said, I think me and I guess I also I have Cooper Edwards as my catcher because he's the only catcher on the roster, which ding ding ding, common sense at that point. Um, but realistically, Jose Contreras and Cooper Edwards are both Cubs guys. They're not going to be our starters. I doubt that they're
Right.
going to be starting. So that was when I was looking at the roster, it's what we have in hand. We have so many middle fielders and players that can play left and right that it was like we don't really have a lot of first basemen. We don't really have a lot of third basemen, and the people that can play third that can hit the ball can also play in other positions. So So obviously, so you have Contreras at third, and you said you moved Olivier to
Second base.
second base. So then, who did you move to short?
So shortstop was kind of one of those things where it's up, up in the air, but I think Ethan Lopez is the one that you have at short.
Okay, so then who do you have at first?
First base, I have Romer.
Okay, so who you have in right field?
That's a great question. I have to figure out somebody to put in right field.
Well, that's what I'm saying is you moving Marcos out of the lineup, who was one of the um top hitters with the RailCats last year. You move him out of the infield. You're not going to put him in the outfield, so now you're just taking him out of the lineup.
Well, okay. So the problem with Marcos is I think that I have Marcos at shortstop if this guy Ethan doesn't work out at short.
Okay.
I need to be able to shore up that second shortstop area. I don't have Howard out there at short or at second base. Even though he did play pretty, I mean, he played good at second base last year when he was out there. Um, the issue that I have and where my focus is at on this lineup is more towards not necessarily hitting them down the corners, but more towards the up the middle double plays because last year it seemed like that's what saved us from a lot of heartache was we'd always have a guy on base and it would be an up the middle double play and it was consistent.
Yeah, I guess there was a little bit of I also put in a little bit of recency bias as well. So Marcos in the Columbia Winter League was batting a 306. So like I said, we've had this conversation last week when I said most of the time that when they're playing in the winter leagues, their numbers go down.
Right.
Marcos and Quintana's are the only numbers that went up. So it's a little bit promising on that factor. But I know Marcos had some time away from the team last year, I believe.
If Marcos if that's here's the thing. If Marcos comes back and he plays second base and he's improved in his playing at second base and he's improved with his hitting, then I got no problem with him playing second base. Then you put Basabe back at third, you call it a day because Basabe, you're not going to get any better of a third baseman than Basabe.
Mhm.
Okay, so where else can you make improvements? Last year we had a shortstop that was very hit and miss.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden he was hot, and he
Yeah.
gets a bunch of home runs, but it was home runs or nothing. It felt like it was, not very consistent when it comes to hitting the ball. Um, but you had pretty decent fielding from him. So I need to make sure that if you're not going to give me hitters, okay, if you're not going to give me any kind of power, you need to give me great defense, great pitch selection where guys get on base, and guys that can get singles or doubles. Give me speed.
Yeah. No, I and to again recency bias with the Columbia Winter League, Marcus Gonzalez walked 40 or 24 times and only struck out 25 times.
That's great.
Yeah, so I'm just saying there might, again, recency bias. Last year, he struck out 50 or 53 times and walked 27 times. There's a big improvement in that aspect of it. So I don't know
That's
if
that's we I think we said this before. If this team is more selective with their pitches,
yes.
it's a huge difference.
So this is how I had with what lineup I had, how I had it broken down as far as like the batting order.
Okay, I'm
So I
interested.
I had Ethan Lopez, I had Marcos Gonzalez, LG Castillo, Nick Olsh, Olivier Basabe, Romer Cuadrero, Carlos Machado, Jose Contreras, and Cooper Edwards. Reason Cooper Edwards and Jose Contreras at the bottom. I I understand like the aspect of your ninth hitter being a second leadoff guy to a certain extent. But with how bad the team struggled last year, I want my guys that I know can hit the ball as many bats as possible.
Right.
So I think having your top end person, and I'm kind of out of the belief in the four-hole hitter should be your power guy, because how many times last year did we have a 1, 2, 3 inning and now you have your power guy up there and he's not able to drive anyone in? I kind of see it as a hybrid move to a certain extent. Being a guy that could be another leadoff hitter, but someone that's able to drive in people.
So
And
who do you have for number four?
I have Nick Olsh.
Okay, I agree with that. Here's
So,
why I agree with that. Here's why I agree with that. Um, so Nick is a left-handed hitter
mhm,
with solid numbers. Okay. To me, if you get a guy on first, a guy on second, first and third, whatever it is, when you get Nick up, at least you're going to get a solid hit to make something happen. That's what you need, especially if it's a left-handed hitter. What we've tried before is we've tried to have somebody that was a pretty good power hitter, but you're playing in the steel yard 50% of the time.
yeah,
And having a pretty good power hitter is not going to work at the steel yard, especially if it's a right-handed hitter. So you're not getting uh, one of these monsters that are playing for these other teams. You're not getting a Brian O'Grady that hits a home run every 7 at bats. You're not getting that, right? So you need to wind up getting a guy that's a left-handed hitter that's going to bring you some power and consistency in that spot so that when you get those fast guys on first, second, first and third, whatever, you can convert that to runs. We don't convert things to runs, and we need to.
okay. So going back to your thought process of having Olivia play second and Jose playing third,
Right.
just hear me out on this one. Jake Allgaier, all right? He's a switchy, but he's right-handed. So he's switch-handed, but he's right-handed. So obviously he can play third base. He plays third and shortstop. Last year with Juliet, he batted a 250. In his career, he bats a 290. He could be that potential guy that you could stick at that third base. So you're not risking um, a defensive lap necessarily at that, and then having someone more consistent in the lineup.
There you go.
Um, a lot of these like this, I think what I normally wanted to get out of this is because when we sit here and we talk about these players and we just talk about the guys that we know. And I think having a sheet of all the players that I have written down and having this conversation, it's easier to remember some of these players and go, oh yeah, that guy did this. So it's like when you're trying to put this lineup together and you bounce ideas off of each other, like, oh, that might actually work out better than what we were originally thinking. Because I mean, realistically, when we talk about the team, realistically, we just really talked about LG Castillo. We've talked about Jose Contreras, Oliver, but like
Saturday.
the people that we
Yep.
know, and
Right.
you open it up and you see the Nick Olsh guy. You know, we've lacked in. I shouldn't say Nick Olsh guy. He's on our team. It's Nick Olsh. Like he's played in the DH role, or he's been in that DH role. He's a left-handed bat, someone that I think could provide a bit more power numbers. I know, like in the Pioneer League, you know, he played in 90 games. He only had 7 home runs, or no, he had 10 home runs, but he had 86 RBIs. In his career, um, he has almost 40 home runs and over 280 RBIs. Like he's just someone that's going to be able to drive people in.
Right. But if a left-hander,
Yeah. Well, no,
is
and that's
going
what
to
we.
be hitting it to the short fence. I mean, that's kind of. I mean, we said this at the beginning of this whole thing was that we're missing a left-handed hitter that has some power that can go out there consistently and hit the ball. And
Yeah.
here we got one of those guys that appears on paper can make that happen.
I mean, I think the other guy that I have as a bench player right now is a Baron Radcliffe. I mean, he's left-handed. Last year with Washington, he only played 12 games, but he had 2 home runs. Um, it may not seem a lot like 12 games with 2 home runs, but that's more than what we get most people anyways in an
Right.
entire season. He's also left-handed. Um, but his career stat, the reason I didn't put him in the lineup because last year he only batted a 152 in the 12 games. Like a small sample size, and then you look at his career, he's only batted in a 220.
Where was he at with 12 games?
Washington Wild Things,
Okay.
who were successful in the Frontier League. So
Right.
like he
Right.
was playing on a really good team, and if you're not producing, they're more than likely going to be like, all right, bye,
Well,
see ya.
I just wonder what had happened that he only played 12 games.
I don't know if
It
he
could
was.
be that he wasn't producing or something like that. It could be injury related. It could be various different things. I know that when we got LG, he had only been on the team for a little bit of time, and he got let go from that team, or we picked him up somehow. But I mean, there's
Well,
anything. 12 is a very small sample size for me to make a decision. That
yeah,
being said, hey, if the guy, didn't do good, we'll be able to tell pretty quick if it's consistent that he doesn't do good.
no, and I don't know if it's a little bit of that. And again, Washington, I think, competed against Quebec for the Frontier Championship team. I don't know how far they made it, but anyway, they're top echelon. I think they had the highest winning percentage last year, for the Frontier League. So obviously, when you're on a good team and you're not producing, they're going to want to replace you. Again, don't know the full speculation of it. Um, maybe some of you are thinking, well, what about Howard Rodriguez? Like the guy, I don't know if he's consistent enough to be in the lineup every day, and he wasn't really in the lineup every day. I mean, he had his moments. I would agree, he had some really good moments, and there was times last year was like, why are we keeping him out of the lineup? Because at the time we were struggling to figure out what was going on with our, offense in general. So it was like one of those like, just throw a dart in the wall and see if it sticks.
Right.
Um, I mean, obviously, I really think we need, like you said, I agree on the aspect of we need another solid catcher, someone that's going to, if it's a veteran presence, uh, someone that can control a game.
Yep.
I think ultimately that's what we need.
Yep.
We need someone that can produce offensively but can control a game.
Yep.
If we're gonna get a little bit of a lapse in defensive play, maybe not throwing everyone out, but not allowing everyone to go from first to third in 2 pitches would be
Right.
nice. Um,
No, I need a you can bring back Quintana,
mhm.
okay? But I still need a veteran catcher
No, I agree.
that can go out there, that can help the pitching coach assess what he's really looking at. They can give somebody that, you know, can give an honest feedback um to show what's going on with their pitching staff.
I would
And
agree.
can, in the game when, maybe, the pitching coach doesn't see something, but the catcher does. He can say, "Hey, time," and call that pitching coach out and say, "Hey, something's going on here," right? And just be that honest response to what's going on live in the game. Instead of, if you can make that call 10 pitches earlier,
Hmm.
it could be the difference in a game, right? So I want a veteran experienced catcher out there, somebody that is well respected and is, one of those guys, and he doesn't have to play all the time.
Yeah,
That's the thing, is that you can put Quintana out there, but you put this guy in at the beginning of the season, you let him play a handful of games, and then you sprinkle in a Quintana, right? And you let him work with Quintana to bring his game from what might be a, a C plus B minus, right? Help him bring his game up to a B, to a B plus,
yeah,
because that's what you get from a veteran catcher. You also get your pitchers with a veteran catcher. It brings their game up. because now you've got somebody that's been there that can say, hey, when and you have to the only way this works is if everybody leaves their ego at the door,
Yeah, I would agree.
right?
I think
Like I as a catcher, I
yeah.
need somebody that can go out there and say, "Hey, why did you call for this pitch? In this situation, why did you call for this pitch?" And then if it was the wrong call, explain to the catcher why it was the wrong call so that he doesn't make that call again and explain why he would do it differently. And that catcher that's the rookie or the younger catcher should be able to listen to that critique, to that feedback, and should not necessarily change his game, but it should add to his game, ideally.
Yeah, I think something that I know I don't know how you feel about it, but I kind of like the idea behind it a little bit is a player that's going towards a little bit of his end of his career a little bit to be like a player coach
Yes.
kind of deal.
Yes.
Having a catcher because really most great managers were catchers at some point.
Absolutely.
And I think having a I know that Jason's a good guy, fun guy, whatever the case may be, but maybe replacing his role with more of um a player coach sort of deal. That can be a catcher that can maybe call a game from the dugout and then spare once in a while
I
to
don't.
have.
Well, here's okay. Let me throw this out there. I don't think that you necessarily have to have um, a coach that is or a player that's a coach
Yeah,
and lose a coaching position like Jason has. Okay. Look at what Milwaukee has. Milwaukee has a guy who is a catcher, not on the roster as a catcher, but he goes in and warms up the bullpen. He's their bullpen guy, but he's also their coach. He's not tying up a roster spot. You bring in, give me a veteran catcher. I don't know that he necessarily ties up a coaching spot, but I think that he starts out as being your main guy. He backs off, teaches the younger guys how he's learned or he's earned the respect of his teammates. He then starts helping your pitchers. He's your bullpen guy,
yeah,
right? To me, that's the way I see it. So he becomes your bullpen guy. A guy like Cooper becomes your backup catcher to go in when there's something going on. Catcher gets hurt, something like that. Cooper comes in, and then they swap, and your veteran catcher comes in the next inning or what have you. But Cooper is a guy that you bring in to kind of fill in that void as like the third string quarterback type of a thing.
yeah.
Oh, I see. I think that even a guy like Cooper, a guy like Cooper could benefit tremendously from a veteran catcher.
Yeah, I would agree.
You
I,
know,
I, I think the biggest knock on Cooper is his offensive production. Outside of that, I think he can call a great game. I
right?
think he's a great defensive catcher. He can throw people out at a great clip. I think he sees the game well. I just think that the lack of offensive production, and you could argue his size is a factor behind that. But
I okay. I'll say this when I say you bring in a veteran catcher, it's not just because he's a catcher. Okay, I believe you bring in a veteran catcher because one, they understand better than anybody the pitching outside of a pitcher, right? They understand the pace of the game and the scenarios of the game better than anybody else. They're the only ones facing
mhm,
that direction, right? And that's for a reason. And then you can also say they understand hitting better than anybody else.
yeah,
And they can understand you have a hole in your swing. Why? Because they're pitching to that hole in your swing when they're your catcher. You get what I'm saying? They're looking at how you're up there, how you walk up to the plate when they're calling the pitches to go against you. A veteran catcher is looking at all that stuff. And so as a catcher, you can help a Cooper with his hitting.
Hmm.
I mean, crazy amounts. So a veteran catcher gives you everything. He's the only position, the only player I believe that can help both your pitching staff and your defense and your hitting.
No, I
He's the
agree.
only player that I can see on the field that does all of that.
No, I agree. I that's the past handful of the past in the Mars regime, the two spots that I see consistently fail over and over and over is a DH spot and a catcher spot.
Yeah,
And I think those are, however you want to argue a DH role, well, DH is now a position that is of importance. It's in the MLB. There's people that are strictly going to be hitters.
yeah,
And I think you have to have that as a strength, someone that can hit. And I think you filled that with Nick Olsh. I think that spot has been filled.
yeah.
Um, I
Yeah, absolutely.
um, but I still think the catching aspect of it isn't fully there yet.
No,
I just haven't
I'm
seen.
gonna argue that there's three positions that haven't worked out very well. My third position is going to be first base.
Yeah, I I think it worked out with Valera though.
So I believe that batting performance worked out well for Valera if Valera wasn't a first baseman. First baseman is a different type of a hitter than what Valera was. Valera wasn't a speedy, hard hitting guy. Valera was a contact, get on base guy. And I could see that being a second baseman, a shortstop, a third baseman. I want that from those positions. But from my first baseman, I want a guy that's essentially going to be like a Nick. He's going to be a power hitting left-handed hitter that's going to wind up either hitting a home run, getting a double, something like that to make a difference. The same thing as my right fielder. My right fielder, I think, doesn't need to be fast. He just needs to be a powerful guy. We've got that short deck at right field. He doesn't have as much ground to cover. So I don't need to have somebody that's top of their speed game, but I need a guy that's going to hit the ball, preferably a left-hander. It's going to hit the ball and get you that opportunity to move some runners quite far with a hard single or a double. That's what I need from those three positions.
I guess I understand the realm of the old ways of baseball. You have
You're not
your
gonna, come on,
well, I'm just saying you have a guy that is able to move runners. You have a guy that can get on base, who can draw a walk. At that point, I necessarily don't care where he plays. If he's going to give me a good defensive, well, okay, let's do the two comparisons. You have a Tapia and you have a Valera. Your Tapia was your first baseman that played a really good first base. He was your power guy, but he wasn't always consistent.
right,
You bring in a Valera who was more consistent, who was driving in runs, who was getting on base, and played a heck of a first base.
right.
I can sacrifice not having a power guy at first base.
If you gave me a solid right fielder and a solid DH, I would take a Valera at first base any day of the week. But you got to give me two out of the three, and I haven't gotten two out of the three at all.
Well, I'm not disagreeing with that aspect. For me, I guess
And I want
baseball
my
has.
first baseman to be a left-handed hitter.
I guess, and that's the way that you. I mean, this is the fun part about this is that's the way you envision what your lineup should be.
Right.
And has that been successful in years past? Yes, it's still successful. I mean, you see a lot of first basemen. Let's just take Anthony Rizzo, for example. He's a lefty, hits for power, a good first baseman.
Not available for the RailCats.
Well, yeah, not available. But That does work. I mean, majority of your time, your first baseman is your power hitter. I understand that. I get that aspect of it, but in a lineup that has that struggled for consistency, I don't think, and we've tried this power game before, and it hasn't worked out. So I don't think having a power guy, having a designated guy to be a power guy in a certain spot is what you need. We'll take a Jose Altuve, for example. Now, granted, they're looking at moving him to left field for other reasons, but he's my height and he can hit for power, and he's a second baseman.
Okay.
That's not normal.
Right.
So, but I'm just saying that just because I don't want us to pigeonhole ourselves into we have to find this guy for this spot and this spot only.
Oh, no. I mean, hey, you give me a guy who can make solid contact that's a left-handed hitter and is fast, I'll put him in any position possible. I'll fill my whole lineup full of left-handed hitters that have solid contact and can get on base and are fast. I'll fill the whole lineup.
Well, I mean,
Problem is,
you
is
have to be able.
you're not going to find very many of those people that are left-handed hitters that are playing the other positions.
No, I mean obviously no, because really your left-handed batters, if they throw left-handed, are going to be in the outfield or at first base because they can't play anywhere
Right.
else.
Right.
I completely understand that aspect of it. Like I get that. I'm just saying I I
And why? Okay. And then why is it that I say catcher, DH, first baseman, or right fielder are the ones that are the ones going to have the power? Because typically it's not the slower or the faster guys. It's the guys that are a little slower because they're a little bigger, right? And those are the guys that are bringing the power. And what are the positions they can play? They can play first base, they can play right field, or they can DH.
and again, I understand that, but just pigeonholing yourself to obviously that's a player that we need. We need someone that can hit for power. And yes, I understand that majority of the time they're going to play your third base, your catcher, your DH, your first base, and your corner outfielders. Like I get that aspect of it. But I'm just saying in the comparison of a Jackson Valera, I would rather have taken him there at
Oh,
first base than what
no, you are correct. I would like to have a Jackson Valera at first base, but I have to have those other two positions with the power, with the consistent hitters and the power. Left-handeds. I
I
you have to try to capitalize on that short deck in left field
I agree.
when it comes to your power. You bringing in a powerful right-handed hitter to play right field does not do anything for you. It gets you 10 home runs.
And
And
unless he hit for opposite field power, which
right,
you typically don't get a lot with
right.
that.
And if you did, he's already been picked up by somebody else. So, you can't go and look for these unicorns and hope that you get them. You have to play to the strength of your field. And the strength of your field is getting a left-handed power hitter or guys that can hit left side of the field or right side of the field that, you know, I mean, that's the game that you have to play.
Yeah,
And I mean, come on.
I agree, and I think I would have to look up last year, but I mean we really didn't have a lot of left-handed batters last year besides
No.
Delvi. I think was the only one that we had that was lefty.
Yeah, it was scarce because we got
Uh,
rid of Lingua, who was the switch hitter, and
yep.
you had that with him. I think we had a couple other guys that were, but
Yeah,
so going to your lineup. I agree with most of what you have there. We do have some nuances or can go back and forth, but here's where I make some big changes. Okay, one of the things that I go for, okay, is I would trade just about anybody on this list to get me an Edwin Arroyo.
I agree.
Okay. Get me that second baseman that is brick wall like Basabe, that is fast, that is short and can get on base. And one of those guys, I'll be honest with you, every time he comes up to the plate, I don't care if we're up by 5 runs. He's still scary because
Yeah.
you know he's going to make something happen. Trade for a guy like that. Give me a Lamar Briggs, a guy who's going to throw his body on the line in the outfield, a guy that's going to do whatever he can to get on base, and he's going to turn a single or a walk into a double or a triple. Somebody that's lights out on the base path. Give me a guy like that, and give me a catcher that is, you know, a veteran skilled catcher. Give me one of those guys. Those are the three guys that
Yeah.
I would like to have a Greg Minier that's a pitcher that has had something in the league before that you can kind of expect what you're going to get. I'd like to have a guy like him. Um, you know, heck, I'd like to have a Ryan Zimmerman
Mhm.
pitcher. You know, a guy like that. Um, you know, maybe find a pitcher like that. But you've got so many few options you have right now of spots to fill that what do you do?
No, I agree. And obviously, like I said, like you said last week, where this all could be for nothing. We could sit here and discuss this for the next what 80. I think that RailCats put out for their home openers 80 days. So
We will do this for the next 80 days.
yeah, wait. I mean, we'll have this, and I think that's why I like having that. I had the list together, and hopefully we get. I mean, we're close to being full anyways on our roster. I mean, we're missing maybe a couple pitchers here and there, and a first baseman and then a catcher, and then we're kind of stuck
Right.
on that front of where the roster spots are. So, I mean, we can play with this for days and months and argue why this person over that person or this person here and there. But I mean, that's why you do it, right? You get to have. I mean, I think this is the first real outside of having um Nick and Ryan on, the real actual baseball conversations we've had since the end of
True.
last season.
True.
So
Now, that being said, let's change the topic a little bit here.
here we
Um,
go.
I think that we need to start a movement within the RailCats baseball, where we try to make Justin Turner a RailCat. Now, I through a lineage of about 5 jumps go from me to Justin Turner himself, who is now a Cub for like $6 million. And he does have ties to Northwest Indiana through his wife. I think that we right now we make the ploy to make Justin Turner a rail cat. I think he loves the game of baseball. I think he's towards the end of his career. Why not take the chance? Why not? I think, I'll be honest with you, I think you bring Justin Turner to the team and you wind up selling out the stadium quite a few times in a year.
I would agree with that aspect of it. Me not being a Cubs fan, uh, you texted me like, "What if we got Turner on?" I'm like, okay, like I not a Cubs fan. I mean, don't get me wrong. Having any MLB player that on here would be awesome, but is it feasible? No, they would probably have to be in a wheelchair at sea now before they would agree to jump onto a podcast about the RailCats. But I mean, if you could get it done, man, by all means.
Oh, I'm not just saying on the podcast. I'm saying actually make it
No,
work.
no, by
Play.
all means. If you
Not
want,
me
if
get it done.
listen, if you want to chip in $5.9 million and the RailCats can kind of match that. Joe can match the other half. How
No,
about that?
no,
And then
that's not that's not what it takes. What it takes right now is for us to start a campaign and for it to get in front of his eyes that when he is ready to leave Major League Baseball and come back and play what real baseball looks like in the American Association and have some fun, then he needs to become a real cat.
okay,
That's what.
so got it. GoFundMe page to get Justin Turner on the RailCats. Okay, got it.
Boom. I like the sound of that. I like the sound of that. That would be great, wouldn't it?
I mean, hey, listen, from a fan's perspective, from the RailCats perspective, like they would be seeing green, and not just because that's in the logo. That's just because they would see all the money that's rolling in.
Wow.
Be because I mean, you get an MLB ex MLB player in there who played for the Cubs. You know, you got Cubs fans everywhere around here. So they're just going to want to come see him play and get up and close and personal. And then you sign a contract with him of some kind of deal where you just start putting his name on the back of jerseys, right? And then you start selling Railcats Turner jerseys, and
I
there
know.
you go.
Dude, I would have one up on the wall right now. That would be, yeah. Joe, are you listening to this? Joe came up with a great idea.
Yeah,
We're gonna do something
you
where,
just have to drop $5.9 million dollars
oh,
and Chuck will
Joe, you
match that.
don't. You don't, Joe. All you have to do is give us the wherewithal to be able to get something in front of Justin to say, hey, you're coming to the end of your MLB career. Let's make a difference to Northwest Indiana. Let's come to Gary. Let's show what Northwest Indiana is about. Let's make it happen. That's all. He just needs to know that this is an opportunity that he's going to have when he's done with his baseball career.
I mean, I know that really the naming rights for the stadium's up for grabs.
That's right. That's the other
So,
that you know what? This is the part I don't understand. I understand that it's the Steel Yard, okay, and we're the Gary South Shore Railcats. I get it, right? U.S. Steel Yard. It's good, right? But I mean, come on. They U.S. Steel hasn't funded and hasn't paid for the naming rights in like 10 years, is what I read, or something like that. Don't tell me that Romantics isn't willing to shell out $1,000. They could go towards bobbleheads. I mean,
well,
come on.
I mean, let's just um,
Deja vu. Come on, you can make it the Deja vu Field
who
house.
you can have, you can still have the U.S. Steel Yard, but then like, I don't know, whatever Japanese steel mills taking over now can just be their
Right,
name. It could just be that person's field. Like,
right. It
there's
could.
plenty of that have double names, so like you can keep the steel yard, but just name it, uh,
Romantics Field at
yeah,
US Steel Yard,
exactly. So,
you know? Yeah.
and then you could put
You
their
know?
logo on the side of your helmet.
Yeah. I mean, come on now. There's so many things that
We're,
I'm trying to help you make some money here, Joe. Trying to give you some
I,
ideas, buddy.
yeah, I don't know if that gets approved
Hooters
for
is going bankrupt. They're supposed to be filing bankruptcy on
who
Monday.
is
Hooters.
what?
Yeah. You
Love that
know?
place.
So you could have had, I mean, Hooters Field at the U.S. Steel Yard, and it could have saved them from having to go bankrupt. You'd be doing help for both.
Now, are we talking about Hooters like the company in general, or like Hooters just in their Portage? Because,
No, Hooters in general is going bankrupt.
well, I mean,
So
I'm not really surprised by it.
Joanne Fabrics bankrupt. If we could have had Joanne Fabrics Field at the U.S. Steel Yard, maybe it could have
No, no,
saved
no.
them.
We're overthinking this. It needs to be Bennigan's Field.
We're a little late on that. We
No, we're
missed.
not. No, we're not. It's not like they're going to be paying for the rights anyways.
Yeah. Did the favorite food get changed on the website yet?
I didn't check to see if it did.
I'm gonna start ruffling some feathers.
I don't think we ruffled one feather.
I'm gonna start ruffling
I
some
don't think we
feathers.
ruffled one
See
feather.
if that can get changed. What
If people
might
want if people want the backstory of this, if you go to the American Association homepage and you click on teams, it brings up the list of teams. You don't click on the teams to go to the website. Like it gives the teams like all their like
fun
best
fact,
promotion, fun facts, that kind of stuff. And for the Steel Yard or for the Gary Social Railcats, the best promotion or best promotions is Princess and Princess or Prince or Pirates and Princess. Dang it, I can't get that right. I should get that right. And then for the favorite food or fan food, it's Ben's Pretzels.
right?
Which we both agree should be something other than Ben's Pretzels because no other team has a company branded food.
Right.
It's like pierogies, hello, or Taco Tuesdays or something. I don't know, something different than Ben's. No, this is not a dish at Ben's Pretzels. I love Ben's Pretzels. My wife loves Ben's Pretzels, and my son will probably like Ben's Pretzels. I'm just saying that when you have like a nacho helmet or a Kansas City barbecue meal as a fun food or best food or whatever the case may be, it sounds more appealing than Ben's Pretzels.
Right. Right.
So I think that
To
the
me,
American Association
them
needs to
putting
change that.
them putting Ben's pretzels is the same as them putting freezer section corn dogs as their, I mean, come on. You mean to tell me your favorite food, your best food from the steel yard is Ben's pretzels? Well, guess what? I can go into Myers and get the
Yeah,
best food that the South Shore has to offer.
but okay, but to be honest, it's not like Ben's Pretzels isn't freshly made because it is.
Right.
It is. I give him that much. But
But it's not something that I can only get at the steel yard. That's the thing.
obviously I have a freezer full of pierogies because I love pierogies now since they have them at the Steel Yard and that's where I felt my love at. But you can't get the best pierogies besides Pierogi Fest. I still need to go to. Um,
Man,
then at the Steel,
all of a sudden you got an addiction because they added pierogies to the
I
steel yard.
love
So,
pierogies. All
oh
right,
my goodness,
I think I make a mean pierogi. I do. I really do. Okay.
nuts.
You boil it first, you let it float to the top, right? And then while it's doing all that, you take some butter, right? You melt the butter down a little bit, get it all nice and liquidy. You throw a little bit of salt in there, but then you put some garlic powder in there. You mix it all together, and then you lather it all over the pierogies, and then you fry them up.
I hope this is the clip you're going to use to introduce the video.
I have a lot.
You doing that right there is what needs to be the introduction to the video for this one.
I
And
probably will.
it needs to be Kyle gives pierogi recipe and more steel yard information.
No, Kyle cooks up the 2025 season lineup.
There you go. There you go. All right. Boom, done.
See, it's done, and we're this is all gonna be in there too. This is a little glimpse into the after the podcast talk.
Yes, every day. Every day we talk about this stuff. Oh my goodness. All right. So uh what do we have to be excited about coming up in the next couple of weeks? Hopefully we have some more signings. Um
hmm
hopefully I mean baseball starting. It's going to be interesting to see how we had a couple of catchers or a catcher I forgot who it was that just went to the Cardinals spring training. We've got Brian Torres with Cardinal spring training.
hmm
That'll be fun to watch. Um, so seeing JC out there in a Yankee uniform would be fun to watch. Seeing some of these guys that have made it to the show or are on that cusp of making it. My thing is that I hope that a guy like Brian Torres gets to step out on that grass and get some MLB stats because I think he would just knock everybody's socks off. He's that kind of a player, and I don't think that he's recognized as such at that level. Um, and hopefully we get with us that hopefully some of these names that are on this list here they turn things around for us.
I mean, uh,
You're thinking about it. You're making a list,
making a list, but
making a shopping list of what you need to make pierogies, aren't you?
yes,
That's what you're thinking about, right?
that's what I need. Can they gonna give me? Oh, I was just the White Sox played today in spring training, so I was seeing if Umberger happened to play today or not. But
Did he
he
get a
he
spring training
he did get a spring
invite?
training invite, but he might be a part of those. So like that they have like the multiple games where they play different. So it may not
The
be.
squad?
Yeah, he may not be a part of like the main group of them where you get all the stats and stuff. But he might. I mean, that's something to also intrigued by if anyone cares to follow that, since he was a Railcat for a brief time, even though he never played as a Railcat.
Well,
So
still,
take that, Kansas
hey, I'll
City.
tell you what, if Lamar signed 5 people and 3 of them got contracts to MLB spring training camps, then I would say, you know what? I am happy to see those other 2 people that haven't made it yet, because chances are he's bringing in some talent that's a nice level. So him bringing in one guy out of 10 new signings, maybe, maybe he got lucky. But
Well, we'll find out.
if anything, I think I'll tell you what though. If anything, especially after going over this lineup thing, maybe there are a few diamonds in the rough here that we can be excited to see play when we see the big picture. Maybe Lamar is doing some pretty decent work this offseason that we just haven't seen yet.
I, this could be a discussion for a different time, but I just don't want it to be deja vu all over again, because this was the same exact thing
Hold
last
on,
year.
hold on,
And I'm not talking about the ladies' dance club,
hold
okay?
on. No, see, this is why, Joe, we just said deja vu field at US Steel Yard. Why? Because we do the same things over and over again. It's like deja vu.
No, that's
There you
that's the
go.
definition of insanity. There's a difference.
I know, but it's like, well,
What I'm just saying, last year when I was going through all the lineups and everyone that we had, it was like, oh, I could really see this guy
I
producing at a high
know,
level.
I know, I know,
And
I know.
last year, if
Let me tell
everyone
you,
wasn't so
Kyle,
inconsistent,
I'm going to tell you something, Kyle. You weren't the only one feeling that way. I actually went up to Lamar and told him how excited I was to see this lineup that he had put together last year. 100 games in, was not so excited to see that lineup put together that he had put together that year. So hopefully this is different. Which reminds me, did you go with us to Cocktails with the Cats last year? You did not. I don't
no,
think so.
I am not worthy of going, because I do not have season tickets.
Right.
And I know that the organization doesn't really want me around their players asking them questions. So,
See, I don't think that that's true. And so what I was thinking is that I might be able to extend you as my plus one.
well, that's the give around. That's the loophole in the contract sort of deal.
Right.
If it was just me myself, it's not like, hey, you want a media pass to talk to all these players and bring
No.
light to the cocktails with cats. No, 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 no. I have to find the loophole, and
Last year, Cocktails with the Cats was wonderful. It was so exciting. And we actually they had brought out the band from
mhm.
the I don't know what they even call them. I don't think it was a quartet. I think it was 3 guys. I can't remember, but they were from like the 1950s,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and they're the ones that sang the "Take Me Out to the RailCats"
Yep.
song. And boy, was it fantastic! Also cool that I had my Kangol hat on, and one of their guys had it on. I said, "Look, we got the same hats." So we're equally as cool, even though I don't sound as cool as you do. So that was fun, but it was great watching all that. And I look forward to that too. There's like the Realcats put on so many cool things.
hmm
So that being said, if you would like, not you, but as one of the 3 listeners, if you want to go see Cocktails with the Cats, I think that it's anybody that has a real season ticket, um,
hmm
or if you are a host family, which I have been asked if I knew anybody that wanted to be a host family. So if you are willing to open up your house to a rail cat or cats, it gets you the opportunity to see kind of behind the curtain, and it gives you the opportunity to experience baseball in a totally different level.
Yep.
So I would suggest that you reach out to Anthony if you are willing to do something like that. And it doesn't take much. Just takes a bathroom and a bedroom for them, and the mutual respect of their space and your space. That's about it. There we go. We're
Just
done.
long as the bathroom and the bedroom are not in the same room.
I think that if they're struggling for people, they might be willing to concede
Well,
that.
that might be the case anyways. Anyways, Chuck, do you have any final thoughts for this week?
Let's just get these 80 days over with.
I agree. He's Chuck Blutter. I'm Kyle Svetich. This is RailCats Talk Podcast. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, rest of your evening, wherever you're watching this, and go Cats.
Go Cats.
The 0-2. Swing and a miss, strike three. Wrap this one up in green.